Welcome to this video. In this video, I'm going to take you through the entire step-by-step process. I literally filmed the whole thing on Screen Studio for you guys so you can see how I did it. The entire process of how we built our AI internal system offering with Claude Code and a framework called the BMAD framework. Now, if you're interested in AI coding and you're interested in building actual production grade apps, so things that can go from 0 to 1, so actual apps that you can feel secure in, this framework is going to show you how to do that. It's a little bit slower than tools like Lovable or V0, but it does things properly. It does things in a really methodical way. It builds proper, solid documentation, and it's all about context injection at the right points in time to get less hallucinations and better written code. Now, if that doesn't make much sense, watch this video from start to finish and you will become much more aware of the proper AI coding frameworks and techniques that are out there and how to do this properly. Good luck, and I'm really excited to jump straight into this. Cool. Okay, I'm going to jump just straight into getting started. I'm just going to talk as I go through things. Some things I know how to do, some things I'm experimenting with for the first time. So we might do some troubleshooting as we go with this, but I'm just going to get started and we'll see how we go. So first off, I'm going to create a new project and I'm just going to create it in my home folder. I'm just going to call this one. Cool. So we're going to create that project and we're going to open that folder. Cool. And we have our little system here. Now, actually, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to do the next.js installation first. That'll be the first thing that I do. Now, I'm going to see what happens if I just use Claude Code for this. So if I open the terminal and I create and I just run Claude, cool. Oh, this is just closed again. Okay, so I'm going to allow Claude Code in here. Now, the first thing I'm going to do quickly is import the MCP servers that I have from Claude Code Desktop. Now, you can just add them manually as well. If you type in Claude, so if we go to a new terminal, you type in Claude MCP, or Claude MCP help, you'll see some of the tools that we have here. So if I go Claude, okay, so we've got options, remove, MCP server, you can see that here. So I'm just going to close this output to start Claude Code, add a server. Here's how you'd remove an add, but you can see here we can go import from Claude Desktop. So I'm just going to go Claude MCP add from Claude Desktop. And you'll see here I've got 7, I've got GitHub. Now I'm actually not going to do shadcn UI for this. Memory, cool, context 7, Brage cert, yes, Superbase, cool. The rest of those all look good. So I'm going to import those. And now when we go back to Claude and we go /MCP, so we'll have to kill this terminal. We'll have to create a new terminal. If we go back and go Claude MCP, if we go Claude and we go /MCP, we can now see our MCP servers and they're all connected and working. So that's that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is set up Next.js in this application. And the other thing is actually adding Archon. So I'm going to go set this up. So there's two things. We've got the BMAD method, really cool. The other thing that I'm testing for the first time is this platform called Archon. Now, this was developed by this other YouTuber that I'm watching in this space. And essentially the purpose of this is to basically maintain context across your entire project. So what it's essentially allowing you to do is upload all of this information. So some of the things I've got in here are like, we probably won't need this, but like Next.js docs, docs for certain APIs that you might be using. I'm planning on using Untitled UI, so I've got those docs in there. React docs, Superbase docs, basically all this information, and then you connect with it through an MCP server here. And basically what happens is you create a project for it. So I'm going to create a new project now, and I'm going to call the project the same as the project in here. I'd recommend using the same names just because when you're using MCPs and those tools, if you have the same names, it's just more likely that it's going to know which project you're referring to if you've got multiple Superbase projects or multiple projects that you're working on concurrently. So I'm just going to go demo internal CRM. Cool, let's create that project. Awesome. And we have 0 tasks in here, but the idea is that we can create all the tasks in here, organize them, and it's like a central spot across the context windows. Because what happens is Claude fills up in the chat, then you have to clear the chat or something like that. And then what happens is you have to start again from scratch, and it might not realize that it's already done certain things, or that's where a lot of the hallucinations with this AI coding come from. So the idea is that if you can keep it all in this central location and call this via MCP, you can hopefully avoid some of those hallucinations that are going to come from the limitations on context with these AI coding technologies. Cool, so we have this in here. I'm gonna go ahead and add this MCP server. So cool. So if I come across the Claude code, open terminal, run the following command. Cool, so let's go back here. Let's open the terminal again and let's run this command. Cool. Looks like it's in there. So if I come back, I'm going to kill this again and I come back and run Claude and I look at the MCPs. Cool. So we can see Archon here and it's connected. So just there, we've got Archon set up. We've connected our MCPs in here. The next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get Next.js set up. Now, there are a number of ways to set this up. I'm actually going to pull out, if we go to, and we come across to the classroom and we head down to AI coding. Now, I've actually got the instructions. So we've got some of these instructions here. Can't remember where I put these. Okay, I mustn't have put them in here. They must still be in my coder. Cool. So Node.js, now these are a number of instructions to follow. That being said, I already have Node.js set up, but I'm gonna go into Claude now and let's go into planning mode just to explore what that will look like. So if I come back here, cool. So let's see how this goes. I like how they've added the little tips in here. I think this is a really cool way to learn some of the functions. Like I just realized the other day that you can copy, command, paste images straight into Claude code in the terminal now, which is really cool. Okay, yeah, so we'll have to, okay, so whilst that's working, let's go to GitHub and create a project. So cool. New, let's go, what did we call it? Demo internal CRM. Awesome. Cool. Looks like it's about to initialize Next.js. That looks good. Cool. Now, I wonder if it's going to ask me these questions. Okay, it wants to do yes to TurboPack. Okay. Cool. And it's in here. Now, I'm just going to quickly, let's use Claude code here. And let's go to Next.js Learning Assistant. Now, I know it has, I believe it's used for the testing. I've been using it before and it basically refreshes the code anytime an update is made. But I'm just a bit curious on some of the specifics about TurboPack because I'm not 100% familiar on what it does. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so the changes are almost instant. Okay, cool. So it looks like it's mainly for bundling up the code. Cool. So if we go in, we've got layout.tsx, page.tsx. Cool, and now it's going to npm run dev. Now I might actually ask whether or not... PNPM is just a more modern version of npm. So I'm just going to convert the project to use that instead of npm. This will explain it in much better words. Cool. Now it looks like it started the dev server, but I'm actually going to create so let's kill this. And once this is finished, we will we'll spin up the local server and see if we can see the default app page. Cool, so it is running the server. Now I don't like running the server in the same terminal that I'm using Claude code in because I'd rather look at all the logs in a separate terminal, but that's okay. Let's check if it is on the local host. Cool. Okay, so we have our page there. That's awesome. Now that's amazing. Now we want to connect it or sync it with Git. So if I come back to GitHub, let's grab this URL and let's see if we can set up the Git CLI. So if we go here, install Git, I've already got it installed, but we'll go. That way we can push our initial code base to GitHub so we can actually store our code. Now, whenever I explain GitHub, I just think of it as like Google Drive for code. Essentially, it's version control, being able to store all these apps is basically a list of files and folders. It's just being able to store all of that on a remote repository so that multiple people can access it. It doesn't delete if your computer dies, and you can kind of stage changes. Cool. All right, awesome. So if I refresh this page, we should have, oh, maybe it hasn't pushed yet. Yeah, so guys, you can push your code. Now, as you go, some of these terminals, like being able to commit things to the remote repository and stuff like that, it's sometimes quicker to just do this in the terminal. But for now, we're just going to do most of that in Claude code to begin with. And then as we see it happening more and more, we'll actually start to review what the AI is doing a little bit more and maybe start writing some code in the terminal ourselves. Cool. Now, if we refresh this, yeah, here we go. This is the push. Cool. Now if I refresh, boom, the app is there, which is awesome. Now, we actually don't want to work in the main branch. So what I'm going to do is create a new terminal and basically create a new branch called dev. So if we click down the bottom here, we can see our branches. You can actually just create a new branch right here, or you can do it in the terminal by writing this script. So git checkout is how you move between branches. And we're going to create a new branch called dev, and you'll see that we've moved to the dev branch. So we now have a dev branch and a main branch. And I'm going to quickly push this to the remote repository as well. Now we're going to use the same request here. And if we come back, we'll go git, but this is dev. And so what will happen is if we refresh this page now, we'll see that we now have 2 branches and we're on the dev branch. So that is all set up. And for now, that is pretty much all we need. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is now I'm going to install BMAD. So if I come back to the BMAD docs here, we can see here, they've given us this call here. And if I come back, I post that in here, we should install. Cool. Do we need, yes. Amazing. Okay, enter the full path to your project directory where BMAD should be installed. Okay. BMAD, yep, we just want the core system. Will the PRD be sharded into multiple files? So by that means split up into multiple files. Let's say, for now, let's say no. Will the architecture document? Yeah, probably. We're using Claude Code. Oh, okay, so it goes, press space to select Claude Code. Cool. Pre-built web bundles. No. Cool. Okay, so that's in there. So we've got the BMAD core and we have .claude. So we've got the agents in here: analyst, architect, BMAD master, BMAD orchestrator, dev, PM, PO, QA, SM, UX expert, tasks. Cool. Okay. Now, I haven't actually used this before, but I've seen a lot of people talking about it. And we're going to be using it here and it looks really cool. Cool. Okay, as we go, we're going to have a little bit more of a play with that. Now, if you want to understand how to use it, if we scroll down a little bit more here and we look at the docs, cool. Let's go user guide. Okay, cool. So the planning workflow, which is what we're going to go through next, is basically you'll see that if we go to the analyst, let me just pull this down real quick. If we come to the analyst, we should see, yeah, so we've got the help here, following commands. So this has a number of commands. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open Claude Code again, and let's actually see how this works. So if I come to /agent, cool, let's look at the analyst. Okay, /analyst. I think if you go, cool, so it's activating. Cool. Okay, so available commands. So we got brainstorm, create competitor analysis, create project brief, doc out, elicit. Cool. Yeah, this is awesome. So what we're going to do next is we're going to have a play around and we're actually going to start to scope out our project, build out our PRD, all that kind of stuff with these new BMAD agents to hopefully build a project that is well documented, stable. And you'll see that we spend a ton of time on planning, because the more that I've been playing in these AI coding tools, the more I've realized, even when you're developing without AI, how important each of these planning phases are and how much time they save you. Like, the general idea is that you should actually be prompting Claude Code as few times as possible. If you do the planning correctly, the more times you prompt Claude Code, the more times it's actually generating code, the more, if you're iterating and it goes down the rabbit hole and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And every prompt after that first prompt is worse. So we want to try and build the planning documents as well as possible, so that by the time we actually get to writing any code, it's so well thought out that the potential for hallucination is as small as possible. All right, so we are now going to take a look at, we have an initial project. It says, welcome to Next.js. What we want to look at is we want to start doing some planning. Now, this is going to take a little bit of time using this new BMAD framework before we actually jump into building. So I'm kind of looking here, I can see, so what I'm initially looking at is this. So if you come to the BMAD GitHub, you come down to user guide, you'll see the general BMAD plan and how this works. And there's also a full YouTube video from the creator of this BMAD method where he goes through this in some more detail. But essentially what I'm going to do is working in the brown field. Cool. So All right, so we've got the project idea. So first off, we're going to start with the analyst research, and it should create a docs folder and put some of that documentation in there. So I'm going to clear this. I'm going to remove the docs. Let's just hide the terminal for now because we're just going to work on, and we can hide the cursor chat, and let's get started. So what I am going to, I'm just going to move this light down a little bit better. Cool, that's much better lighting. Now, let's start with clear chat. Cool. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to use Archon. So we have the MCP working. I'm going to come to the projects. In terms of setting this up, now again, there's a full YouTube video online on how to set this up in your project. I'm not going to set it up in this particular project. It's also still in beta, so it's a relatively new product. So there could be some bugs. And there's a lot to figure out, but it looks like really promising tech. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically start with a prompt. So first what I'm going to do is just commit to the dev branch before I even get started. So now in terms of using, so we're going to use the analyst here. Now, I actually have an existing PRD that I'm going to use here, but I'm going to work through it with, so this is a older project that I was working on before. I'm going to use the same PRD that we have in here. So if I look in the docs, I'm going to grab this PRD and I'm just going to use this to begin with, but I'm sure we will refine it as we go. And I actually want to make some changes to it as well. So cool, and we'll see the little asterisk is gone, so it's up to date. And we're good to get started. Cool. Okay, let's clear this again. And let's just run the agent. So if we go analyst and we just run it, it should give us the options. Business analyst, awesome. Cool, so we got brainstorm, create competitor analysis, create project brief, output full document and progress, run advanced requirements, perform market research. Cool, so I'm gonna start with, let's go create project brief because I'm pretty aware of what I want. So I don't really need to do the brainstorming. So this is cool though. So what it's doing is it's referring to all these extra documents that are in the BMAD core. Yeah, this looks cool. I'm excited to play around with it a little bit more because I gave my own shot at creating agents and they were cool. And I think that, you could definitely add things onto here that are more specific to your tech stack. This does look like it's meant to work for a lot of different tech stacks. So it'd be good to find ones that are specific to your stack, but all in all, it looks pretty good. Cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay, cool. So this was the previous, so what we're looking to build here is it's a CRM application. But it's got two sides to it. It has a CRM side to the app and a workspace side to the app. So the CRM side is common CRM features like client management, lead qualification and management, project management, transaction tracking, adding users to a company, etc. More admin stuff. The workspace side is just ops side of running operations. So tasks, chats, logging timesheets, that kind of stuff. So as you can see, I've done like a PRD for this before. So you'll see here, yeah, CRM. It's got quite a bit of context, but I want to see, cool. So it's going to put in docs, yep, users. Cool, that's pretty much it. Cool. Now, the other thing I just realized we haven't done is created a README file, which is kind of like Cursor's rules file. It doesn't, yeah, I think that goes, I can't remember where that goes. We can check that in a moment though, because with Archon, we will need to get that set up. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so it's getting started. Cool, so you can see we've got our docs folder. If I come in, look at the brief. Yeah, this looks good. But first I want to, okay, so this is more of the business side of things rather than the tech side of things, which is cool. It's cool to have this documented. So single source truth database, which will allow the easy to database knowledge graph implementation and AI in an AI future. Right. Cool, so it looks like it should be updating that brief. Let's do this. Cool, okay. It's executive summary. Yep. Platforms true, strategic, incline, single source true. Yep. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. Love it. All right, proceed to next section. That looks good. Analyze competitor. Yeah, challenge. No, we don't want to make this too complicated. So that looks good. Let's move on. Now it's cool. Like, again, a lot of the points of AI is not to, it's because what's really important at this start phase is to actually try and get someone or something, in this case, the AI, to poke as many holes as possible in your idea, not just on the tech side of things, but even just the business idea in general. Because these things all need to be really, really clear before you start, or at least a lot of them do. Because if you don't know what you're doing, the AI is not going to know what you're doing. And then neither of you know what you're doing, and you're just going to spiral down into a bit of a catastrophe. Cool, so here we go. Where's the problem statement here? Now, the other thing is if you just click open preview, now I'm just going to close this. Okay, so let's take a look. Cool, okay, so let's take a look. Problem statement. Yep, yes. Yeah, cool. This is awesome. Yeah, this is good. We got financial bleeding. That's perfect. Data fragmentation, integration nightmares. Yeah, that's generate unique differentiators. That's fine, actually. Cool. I'm happy with that. Let's proceed to the next section. Cool. So we got proposed problem statement, proposed solution. Yeah, cool. So what I might add in here, cool. So a couple of things I just want to add into this solution. Now, again, couple of small things, but it's doing really well. And that's probably because I had an existing PRD. Now that PRD was based on the PRDs from one of the other videos that I created. So basically, if you're going through this, you're probably going to be going through the brainstorming flow to build your PRD. All right, awesome. Okay, cool. So it's done this on the target users. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Yep. Yeah, that's perfect. Yep, love it. Okay, yeah, that's perfect. Section 5. Now I might have see what it does for the MVP scope. Cool. All right, let's take a look. So we got this one, phase 3. Yeah. Okay, so I just want to change some things. Okay. Now the time frames, it always gets the time frames, all over the shop. So ignore the time frames and the dollar figures that this thing generates. Cool. Now phase 2, that's awesome. Yeah, I love this. Cool. I'm really liking the way this is looking, and honestly, it's even like churning the gears in my head again, even though I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. And the good thing is that while you're working through this, these kind of documents are really useful to do all sorts of other things later down the line that might be fed to ChatGPT or other AI models or anywhere to like generate presentations, all that kind of thing. So super, super important. Yeah, cool. Yeah, love it. Yeah. Cool. That looks good. Yeah, looks good. Cool. Again, just some small changes. But again, like, you don't want to rush this phase. Take it slow, read everything that's in there, because this is building the context that's going to underlie all of the decisions that are made by the AI going forward. So you want to, if this is wrong, then you already got a crack in your foundation. And when you try and build anything on top of that, those cracks are only going to magnify. Awesome. Great. Now it's looking for the post MVP vision. Let's see. So we got, yeah. Again, these time frames, not happy with those, but everything else looks good. Yeah, cool. Certain industries that we don't really like building tech for anymore, just because of all the headaches, red tape, stuff like that. So healthcare, finance, things where you're just dealing with super sensitive data tends to just be more high stress. And really with this kind of product, I'm looking to target slightly less like construction. We've done a lot of work there, real estate, restaurants, all of those kind of landscapers, all those kind of businesses in those like software dev agencies, that kind of thing. The issue with like things like healthcare is you get something wrong there, and there can be some pretty serious ramifications. And so, yeah, me personally, I'd rather just stay away from some of those industries. Yeah, marketing, that kind of stuff, e-com, manufacturing. Cool. This looks good. Yeah, I love it. Oh. Now, the reason why I think timeframes and costs, especially when like the GPTs generate data is blown out, is because tech 5 to 10 years ago did take this long and did cost this much. But things are changing. These numbers and these timeframes they're on the way down. But because the models that these are trained on still programmed to what tech traditionally has been, you're going to get some pretty large. That being said, tech always takes longer than you expect, so there's that to consider as well. Now, yeah, I'm not too worried about the cool technical considerations. Awesome. Now, look, like this is not. Yeah, we'll see what happens there. Okay, so, all right, let's added that in. Let's look. So, yes, yeah, cool. So front end, Next.js, React 19, Untitled UI. Yeah, TypeScript, Tailwind CSS, cool. Backends, yes. This all for hosting, Superbase. Yeah, cool. Just trying to think if there's anything now. Pinecone. I think that's probably everything. This looks good. Now, if some of this looks a little bit foreign, it's probably good to get this entire document and then run it past someone that is an expert in the stack that you're building for. Now, I'm pretty familiar with Superbase. I would not call myself I would not call myself a Next.js expert. So there's certain things in here. I'm pretty familiar with Superbase, Edge functions, very familiar with vector databases, very familiar with N8N. I've never used Untitled UI before with its React components, but I am familiar with. So I'm not a React Next.js expert. So there's certain things in here that I'd probably run past someone who is very proficient in those technologies just to get their verification that what is in here is the best approach. So anything that's like you're building that you're not an expert in, where you can get human feedback makes a lot of sense. And giving them a document like this, they're going to understand your context a lot better. So cool. Where is it? Yeah. Cool. This actually looks really, really good. There's an appendices section. I wonder what will go in here. Now, what I'm going to do once this brief is done is I'm actually going to move it into a new folder. We can put it in the docs folder. Yeah, let's put it in the docs folder. And I'm just going to call this, here. I'm just going to call this project. Let's call it project scope. Because I want to separate, like, as we go, we're going to be building a lot of docs. And I want to make sure that the initial scope docs are in their own folder. You could even actually create a separate folder. So maybe I might actually do that and just keep it out of the docs folder. Cool. So what do they put in the... All right, I like this. I don't even think we need a next steps. So I'm going to create a new folder and just call it project scope. Cool. And I'm actually going to throw that into there. Amazing. I am a big fan of that. So let's go back to BMAD and let's see what it says. So it goes, brainstorming, market research, competitor, create project brief, project brief available. Cool. So next one is create PRD from brief. So the PM is going to do that. So actually, I'm going to leave this in the docs folder for now and we'll move it all out once it's done. So we have the brief. I'm going to commit this to GitHub and then I'm going to clear the chat. So we can start from a brand new context and we're going to go to the next step, which is the PM and actually creating a PRD. Oh, it's going to complete the document. Amazing. Don't think we really need it, to be honest, but that's fine. Yep, these are some made up stats, but that's cool. We'll worry about this later. Cool. All right, that's done. So let's go. That's all good. Now, if I come back to GitHub and let's just go to the dev branch, cool, and let's just refresh the page. Sweet. So the docs folder's there. We can see that it's last done 38 seconds ago. So let's clear this chat now. All right, and we're now going to start with the PM. So if I go at PM, I might need to go at agent. Let's go. Cool. And I run this, see what happens. You see you've loaded the PM. I'm really starting to like this BMAD framework. I won't lie. This is pretty game changing, I think, because especially people that haven't had much tech exposure, this is really walking you through the entire process that people spend years learning in a tech team. Cool. Yeah, create. I'm not too sure what an epic is. Create user story. Yeah, looks good. Create epic. Looks like 3 and 6 are the same thing. Okay, cool. Let's see what John recommends, because we do have a big project, and I think that the PRD and the brief are very, very similar. Okay, so let's see what Claude has to say about this. I didn't actually refer to the brief here. .md. Now I'm going to get my PRD again from here, because I'm not sure whether it will remember it here. So, cool, I like this. Okay, that looks good. Yep, let's do number 3. I like the way it asks the responses as well. It goes like, do this, this, or this. Oh, cool. Now I'm actually not going to go, I want to see, so because we have the business document in there, I want to see what kind of questions it asks me if I just let it generate the PRD. So let's see what that looks like. Because we have, of course, a PRD created with, now I'm not sure what FRs and NFRs are. UX required, create front end, generate. Cool, this is nice. Now, what I might do is what I might do, and I'm actually gonna do this in a separate Claude code file, is now what's gonna happen. I wonder if the BMAD method, cool, so what I wanna do, so we have the, if I come back to Archon and I come to MCP server, I come to the global IDE rules. So I'm going to go to plan mode now and use Claude Code's plan mode. And I'm going to say, before I do that, let me just go, if I go initialize. Yeah, so Claude.md, I don't think we don't have that file yet. Let me check. I'm going to ask it. I just want to check whether or not that's in there. In the meantime, let's take a look at this. So, so deliver, yes. Yeah, background context. Yeah, cool. So we got the PRD. Where did it create the PRD? Hasn't actually started building it, so let's see. Docs PRD. Cool. Okay, so then let's initialize one. Actually, let's just remove this for now. And instead, actually, no, let's continue. Okay, so it's creating the doc, yes. Cool, so I'm gonna remove the brief and I'm going to open the PRD now. Yeah, cool, that looks good. Okay, proceed to the next section, which is UI design goals. I think by core components, that's what it means. So yeah, cool. So we've got our Claude.md document, which is here, and it's analyzed our entire app and built a Claude.md doc. Cool. Now, what I want to do is I want to grab the global rules from Archon into our Claude.md file. And we're going to start creating tasks in Archon and having a play with how this works. So if I come back to the demo internal CRM, cool, that's in here, functional requirements. So system, yep, CRUD operations, yeah, looks good. Yeah, cool. Cool, okay, so we got user, yeah, looks good. Guaranteed to look cool. That looks correct, I like that. Add authentication, yeah, this looks good. Now with the BMAD. Cool, okay. So let's see what it comes up with here. Okay, the epics are good. So it's going to go through each one in more detail now. Or tell me CSS. Cool, so I'm going to get it to do this. Review story boundaries. So for especially the authentication one, what I want to do is I want to use Context 7 MCP and Supabase to basically build a solid plan for implementing authentication in the simplest way possible, but also setting it up so that, because authentication is one of the most complex parts of setting these applications up, especially with the AI coding approach. So I want to take a little bit of extra time. So I really just wanted to go over and be careful with this. Now, I'm not sure. So with Untitled UI, so when I'm talking about so we got base components here. So if I go down and we look at, we've got the verification code input here. But if I go to, it'll be in the application. Yeah, so login pages, sign up pages, verification pages. So this whole section here, these shared page examples, this is really what I want to pull out and basically plug into our application and just copy this code. So the code is, let's see if it finds it. So it's performing RAG with the Archon MCP right now. So let's see what happens. Now it's got one MCP server failed, but I'm not sure what. So it's looking for code examples. Let's see what. It's using Superbase's MCP to search the docs. Let's see what it comes up with. Cool. Okay, docs, epic one. Let's see. All right, cool. Story, yes. Next, yes. Cool. Now I think in terms of light dark mode, if I come back to Untitled UI and I come back to documentation and we go to dark mode. Cool. Now organization, name, logo, theme. Yeah, that's cool. Yep. Theme selector. Yes. Cool. This looks good. So I'm pretty happy with this for the Epic one, which is foundation and core infrastructure, which is basically authentication and basic app setup. So let's go through step 2, or Epic 2, sorry. Cool, so we have Epic 2 now. Now it's gone off the rails and it's stopped asking me for, so I'm just going to go back to the PM agent, because that is the agent that we're using. If I come back, yeah, PM. Cool, okay, so, yep. That looks good. Yeah, it's nice. Okay, slight adjustment, I think, to story 2.2. Cool. Kanban board using, yeah, cool. Lead detail, convert lead to a client by moving to one status. Yeah, cool. Just lead. So Claude does love agreeing with you. That's one thing you have to be careful of, is that it will usually tell you that you're amazing and you're always right, which unfortunately is often not the case. So cool. So we have create client management system. Yep. Yeah, this is nice. Okay, like this. Project. Cool. This looks good. Projects list. So we got leads. Yeah. Now I'm not sure if I've actually put the crepe editor in here. This is a really cool. Basically, it's just a really quick way of displaying Markdown, which is the format that everyone gets from. Not sure if I've got crepe in here. I haven't. So let's add it in. And what it'll do is it'll scrape it now. And basically, it's just a really easy way to like add text to an app and basically play with Markdown. It's super AI friendly, much easier than like rich text editors, in my opinion. Cool. Let's put a basic CMS for ability to create documents. Cool. In the projects tab, in project, we would have tabs like details, invoices, expenses, details, and reporting. Those will probably be the basics for now. Cool. That'll be everything for the start and estimating. Cool. So let's see how that goes. Now Archon is it's done it. Meltdown dev. Okay, so basic payroll tracking. Yep. Yeah, looks good. Create data import export tools. We don't really need the data. Actually, that'll be really good for porting other client data into the tool. So yes. Now I actually want to see what this returns. So it's returned no results for RAG query. Huh. Okay. So I need to investigate why that is. That is very, very strange. I'll need to take a look so it doesn't look like it's scraping that correctly. But let's see what happens. Cool. So command boards, projects. So we got overview team. It hasn't updated the project. Okay, so it's doing the projects now. Projects are in there. That's great. So it'll be in the clients here. So it's got clients details. So we've got details, project, documents, activity. Love it. Meltdown crepe. Yep. Yeah, cool. Okay, I don't think client types because we can just look at the lead. So we won't need that. The cool document templates for common types. That's great. We don't need the document templates. Cool, leads looks good. Cool, so we got leads, we got, okay. Perfect, updated the CMS approach to be more, yeah, cool. Okay, let's take a look, so, yep, awesome. Yeah, great, leads, projects, what is... Okay, missed Epic 3. Cool, 2.4, credit data, yeah, that looks great. So like there's certain ideas that are coming up here, like for example, the import export. Like now that I'm thinking about it, if we're gonna get other companies to use this, it's such a no-brainer to just allow, especially for things like clients and leads, which are basically just lists of data. Having some sort of import export is just going to make that entire process, like in terms of onboarding someone else onto a platform, it means that you can just go, hey, look, this is how you do it. Super easy. You import all your data. Saves you having to hassle around with porting data, taking responsibility for all that, which can be a bit of a nightmare. Now I'm just going to finish reviewing this. Story 3.1. Yeah, cool. Okay. Cool. Okay, I'm going to cut this here and just work through this myself because it has been 45 minutes. So I'm just going to work on this myself and complete this whole thing. But then we'll have the PRD and the brief done, just following this exact same process and working through it gradually. And with this, we'll then be able to go ahead to the next step, which is going to be, I would say, I'll take a look at the BMAD, but it's probably going to be using another one of these tools to, I think, architect what the actual database design could look like, but we'll see based on what we get from the outcome of this. All right, so the PRD is done. We've got all 4 epics in here. I've read over all of them, and they're pretty good. And then I've just basically pushed it to GitHub so that if we check GitHub and we'll see. I've refreshed the page. Dev had a push 6 minutes ago. So that's all good. So we have the PRD done. And if we look at the BMAD method, we'll see that the next thing is to call a UX expert. And I assume this is going to create some sort of front-end planning document. So, cool. Okay, let's roll straight from here and see if it will create the prompts for the architect and UI experts. Cool. Please review. Awesome. Nice. Both these documents look great. Let's see what happens. Right, so I'm now going to clear the context and I'm going to use the UX expert. Cool. Open new. So we're going to go to create that front end spec. Cool. So it's got this is cool. The way that he's designed this whole BMAD is really cool. Cool. So let's see if it's found. It's read the brief. It hasn't read the PRD. User personas, usability goals. Looks good. Foundation looks good. Cool, so I wanted to just understand the brief as well, and then we can go ahead and build this UX document. I've made my coffee. Let's crack on. Review the foundation. Okay, so target unit personas based on the usability goals, yes. Design principles. Looks good. Yes, looks good. Maybe. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, I think choosing a lot of these numbers would make a lot of sense. The only reason I'm skipping through a lot of these is because I've actually already built this application in large part and used it stably for 2 years. And then I've actually been building this on vibe coding platforms a couple of times, playing around and done a lot of this for clients. So I'm fairly confident in what I'm looking for. But if you're starting a new product, I definitely would take up some of these options and try and get the AI to poke holes in your ideas. Cool. Yep, that's great. Yeah, I like this detail. Yeah, cool. I like this. Let's go on and proceed to the next feature. Next section. Cool. Okay, so we got sitemap, login dashboard. Yeah, nice. Okay, so we got clients, leads, projects. Cool. So activity, leads, Kanban. Yeah, cool. Go. Yeah, cool. Let's just start with that, and then so project workspace is cool. Messages, tasks, files, timesheets. It's awesome. Company settings, user management. Yeah, love it. B dashboards here on the side. Cool. Clients, leads, project settings, client list, client details. Yeah, client project activity. Yeah, leads, Kanban detail. Yes. Project list, project details, invoices, bills, CMS reports. Yep. Cool. Workspace. Yes. I'm going to close Archon for now. Cool. Okay, this looks good. I think we can definitely work with this. Okay, I wouldn't mind doing some devil's advocate questioning for this. Let's see what, because I do want this to be as simple as possible. So let's see what it can poke into this UX design. Cool. Okay, other sales agents to view. Cool. Now, this is mainly UX stuff. So I like this. Cool. That looks relatively simple. This is good. I like this. Okay, let's see what it comes up with. So, I don't think it's even created the document yet. So that's cool. One, lead to project conversion. Yeah. Okay, so a couple of things with the user flows. convert a one lead into an active project. Cool. Client. Cool. So with front end spec. I've just realized that I forgot to add notifications. Now in the PRD, so I'm going to go back into here and I'm going to get the PM again. And who did the brief? I think it was the analyst that did the brief. So where's the where is it? Front end spec. So I'm going to clear this because I want to add the notifications in. I forgot to do that. So with the PRD here. So essentially what we're doing here is that I want to have a notification system for key things in the app, but I also want to log activities. So whenever someone updates something, does something, we just want an activities log. And why that's going to be really valuable is because data is everything, and the idea of knowing what people are doing, who's sending what messages, who's updating what tasks. So if an invoice gets sent out that's incorrect or something, you just know who does it. These companies are really big on logging, and then when you upsert that to a vector database, you're going to have all this extra information to just build context around your business. So let's see what it's going to do. Cool, story 1.7. Cool. Okay, that looks good. So we've got the PRD updated. So I'm going to push that to Git, and then we can get back onto the front end spec. So if I go to UX Expert again, run it. Cool. That is sorted there. So move that. Okay. Front end spec. Target user personas. Can we please take the client to have the same permission? All right. So I'm just going to update that. This looks good. This looks good. Cool. That's perfect. CRM. Yeah, that looks good. Cool. Cool, so the user flows. Cool. Daily workspace routine, yes. Log in my projects. Cool. Flow 2 is daily workspace routine. Looks good. Project workspace, messages tab, reads and replies, task tab, drags task to in progress. Cool. Project, yes, CRM app, projects, details tab overview. Yeah, looks cool. Flow 4, client project check-in. Tasks tab, yeah. Flow 5, metrics. Yeah, cool. Revenues, cool. That new content, good. This looks good. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Let's see what it thinks. All right, so that looks like the front end spec sorted. So I'm gonna end this video, and then I think the last thing that we have to do is, generate UI prompts. Look, that's if we're going to like Lovable V0 or something like that. Maybe we will do that. So maybe, but we're using Untitled UI, and if we use V0, it's going to use Shadcn. So we probably are not going to do this, or maybe we will. That should be a pretty quick one though. And then we're going to create the create the database design and go through the architecture. And then I guess that's 5 files really. We've got a brief, we've got a PRD, we'll have a front end spec, we'll have the database architecture, and then we'll have our, I guess you could call it initial UI prompt. Cool. So that'll be our 5 documents, and then that's like a really solid start. We should be in a good place to get started. I think we still will need a 6th document, because probably set up a QA doc, then run the checklist. Yeah, this looks good. Shard documents. Yeah, so we still got a little bit to go. but this is a really, really solid planning framework. And as you can see, we're methodically going through this. We're building a pretty complex app here, and I think it's quite well documented, at least up until this point. So I'm looking forward to continuing pushing through. All right, so we've got the front end spec. Next up, we are going to move to the, we'll probably generate the UI prompt. Let's see what happens. So if I open Claude again, let's just go. Now we've got the front end. I don't think we need the prompt. This all looks good. I think we could probably start with the architect. So the architect's this one here. So let's go with architect. Cool. Now this is really important because it'll confuse the AI later down the line if it's made extra fields, extra database tables, extra RLS policies that it's not even going to use. So really, like, all we're doing here is to try and get this database architecture as close as possible to what the final application is going to have in it. Keeping in mind that it's very rare that you'll get it 100% correct at the very start. As you build, things become obvious. You have to add fields to certain tables, stuff like that. But as close as you can get it, the better, especially when we're doing this AI coding. Because one of the key things that can cause issues is the app not being in sync with the database, and then fields that the app expects being there aren't there, and things like that. Cool. So backend architecture. So we want the full stack architecture, I think. Let's do 5. So it's reading the brief. I wonder if it'll read the front end spec. Oh, okay. Cool, that looks good. Let's go to the next step. I'm going to ask it to read the PRD and the front end spec at some point, but for the introduction, I think the brief is enough context. This all looks good. So here I'm using Context 7 MCP. Basically, you can search it up, but essentially it just has up-to-date documentation all over it. So here we go. So cool. So we got cool. This looks pretty good. Now let's just get it to challenge our assumptions. So as you can see, like there's definitely these key, like obviously your tech stack's going to be with you for your entire product. So certain documents here that you really want to get someone that has used these platforms before to review. Because the AI can definitely get things wrong in here, and it speaks with confidence. So you'll be like, "Oh, this looks amazing," but it's definitely not always right. So let's take a look. Cool. Explore, don't deep dive in the specific area. So this all looks good. Yeah, let's head. So here, like, this is where a lot of learning can be done as well. Like, I'm not super familiar with Next.js, so certain like I'm understanding a lot of this, but there's certain things in here I'm like I'm not fully like. For example, this services layer, I assume what this is going to do is provide a layer between like the database and the RLS policies and what we're actually calling and displaying on the front end, specifically for like user roles, what data should be accessible by who and things like that. So I'm just looking to understand that a little bit more. Okay, so cool. Let's see what this looks like. So the service layer, business logic, validation. Okay, cool. So it's kind of just like reusable functions, it looks like. What is the business logic live? Okay, cool. So we got here like base authentication logic. Cool. Okay. Edge functions, super base config, browser client. Okay. Cool. This is a great decision tree. Okay, this makes sense. So this document, I can already tell, is going to take me a while to go through because I'm going to be asking so many questions about exactly what everything looks like in this app so that I understand. Because the key thing with this AI coding is not so much understanding every single individual line of code, whilst that is still a great thing to be doing. It's more so, I think what's more important than that is understanding the modular structure of the folders and the files in your application and where everything lives. And so this agent, I can already tell, is going to be where you absolutely pepper it with questions on what every folder is, what its purpose is, what should be in there, what this file is actually doing. Because like, for example, the Claude can read this code and tell you in human language what it does. But what it can't do is currently its context window is too small. It can't understand. It's not as good at understanding the broader picture. So it can tell you like line by line what code does, but the context is still where you need to understand what's happening to accurately I would think of it as like, you know, on a ship, the people that are actually rowing rather than the person up the front who's actually navigating. The person up the front who's navigating needs to know the direction in order to know when to speed up, slow down, stuff like that, if you get my drift. Okay, so cool. I think let's check the docs. Hasn't created the doc. Cool, so it's creating that document now. I wonder when, like, it can't be long before Claude is doing, like, maybe in a year from now, you know, these prompts, it'll be instant feedback. Like, rather than taking, you know, sometimes these prompts take up to 10 minutes. It's going to be so fast, I imagine, like in a year from now, you just prompt and in 2 seconds, you know, everything edited back and it will move so much faster. Right now, some of these prompts still take 5-10 minutes to complete. So you can actually, you know, move fairly slowly sometimes. But, you know, in a year from now, it could be pretty lightning quick. The human's going to be the slowest part of this equation. It already is, to be honest, because you actually need to understand what's happening and that takes time. All right, I've got to jump from a meeting, so I'm going to get back on and continue this straight after that meeting and keep cracking through to hopefully get a lot of this documentation set up and completed. Okay, so we have finished the architecture diagram. We just committed it. Now I can actually close Claude Code and I'll open the preview. So basically what I did a little bit of this off camera, but it was the exact same thing. It was basically just going back and forth with the architect agent and just kind of clarifying some differences that were between the PRD and the architecture document. And the end product was all in all working through. So you can see here, it's mainly architecture. Now some of this, when we actually build it, we're going to go through it like block by block, go over this in some more detail. But long story short, yeah, it looks like it's put some testing, but long story short, we've got the project structure, looks good, middleware, but basically the main thing is the database architecture, so schema design principles. Somewhere up here, we have the RLS policies. Yeah, here's the RLS policies, which is basically like who can access what data. And then above that, we have all the different tables. So you can see here, like we've got the timesheets table, ID, user ID, project ID, task ID, hours, etc., etc. Now, if you're building a project for the first time, I would definitely wouldn't recommend building a project as complex as this on your first build. Definitely go for something smaller, less tables, less user roles. It's going to be a whole lot easier. This looks pretty good. Now, I don't think it's 100% correct, but it never really is. But I think it's definitely close. And then a bunch of the questions that it asked me, it kind of prompted me to move some of the features that I'd had in the PRD to a later stage that weren't critical for the MVP. And I agreed. I was like, I had notifications through one signal, nice to have, not essential to get this app working. There were a couple other things which like I thought of, I put in there, and then the AI came back and was like, do you sure you need this? And I was like, yep, I actually don't need that. I mean, that's really powerful. As simple as possible for the first product is always the goal. Anyway, I think that's our basis done. So we have these 4 documents. We have architecture, brief, front-end spec, and PRD. And then according to the BMAD method, I've gone through here. I haven't sharded the documents, so I might ask about that now for the agent, but then we should be ready to start this cycle. So I'm quickly just going to ask about the sharding. Let's just ask about that, and then cool. Okay, so it's going to. So I'm not sure what this is going to do, but let's see what the sharding does. I believe it's going to do it according to one of the tasks. Cool. Looks like it's sharding the PRD and architecture documents. Let's see how this goes. Wow. Okay, that's very split. Okay, great. Let's go. So sharded epics. So it looks like I'm just looking here, and the sharded. I think we need to shard these a little bit better. So we're just going to shard this properly, and then we will move on to the dev phase start. Now let's look at what SM is. Bob, the Scrum Master. Now, I actually do not come from a traditional dev background. Everything I've done is self-taught, and I've never worked in, I work in an agency and I work with devs all the time, but I've never, I don't know what a Scrum Master is. I've never worked in a team of I guess, that size. Like, it sounds like an enterprise grade kind of corporate. I'm not too sure what a Scrum Master is. I'm very aware with like product manager, dev, all those kind of things, but I don't really know what a Scrum Master actually does. So it'll be fun to see what this looks like. Cool. So maybe that might just be a slight glitch in the sharding from the P0 agent, which is up here. So we're going to just copy what's in the docs here, or the user guide. Just going to undo the previous shardings. Cool. Okay, so it looks like, according to this BMAD method, this is the ultimate foundation for a project. So, and it looks good. I mean, from all the projects that I've built, we haven't had this exact format, but everything comes down to like this. This looks like a really solid foundation. Cool. So let's go Epic 1, Epic 2, Epic 3. Let's take a look. Yep, all the stories. Perfect. Now it's got QA. There's nothing in the QA or the stories. So where do the stories must get created. Drafts next story. Okay. Yeah, because we haven't built any stories yet. Hasn't happened. Cool. Okay, so it looks like we are good to go. Let's push this to Git. So we've got our epics. We haven't got anything in QA yet or stories, but sure, we're going to add things in there as we go. Let's take a look. Validate story draft. Cool. QA check. Cool. All right. Let's clear the chat and let's start with the Scrum Master. Let's see what the Scrum Master has to say. Bob. Great. Let's draft. Cool. So it looks like it's, yeah, nice. So it looks like it did shard architecture according to the config. So let's check the config. I don't know where that is. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cancel this and I'm going to go back and I'm going to shard the architecture and the PR. So let's run that agent again because it looks like maybe it does want, if I look at architecture, so let's shard document on there. Okay, so we'll get it to shard the PRD first and then we'll get it to shard the architecture. Okay, where's the core config? So if I come back here, so BMAD core config. Ah, crazy. Okay, so we got QA location. Oh, amazing. PR docs. Okay, so PRD shot. Okay, so that'll go to yes, and then the location will go there. So I'll go please update. This is cool. Okay, so it's uploaded that. It's in docs PRD. So if we come down, we got docs PRD with the sharded PRD, which is great. Great. So architecture will get sharded as well. Awesome. Okay, great. Okay, so that just shows that you can shard your architecture diagram and your PRD. That's perfectly fine. If they're small, you probably don't need to do that. But if it's nice and big, no harm. Cool. Okay, it's done. Now I'm going to kill this process and I'm going to do it again. So let's run the Scrum Master again. Now that we've got the sharding all working. Yeah, so that's where it reads the core file. Great. Let's go with drafting. This is a really cool way of developing features. And I know you're sitting there, like, to this point, I've probably spent close to, at least 3-4 hours doing this. But the way, like, generating these user stories, I think we're going to get such better results out of the AI once we have this done. I really quite like the process that we're going through here. So let's see. Now, the other thing I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to run this one more time. I'm going to change the model to Opus and just see what happens. So if I go to, probably, I know you're frustrated that I've just done this multiple times, but let's go with the Scrum Master again. Last time, hopefully. Let's see what happens. We don't need Archon. Let's not use Archon here. Let's actually just disable Archon for now. Okay, I'm just going to remove this. So for now, whilst we're in the planning stage, I'm not going to use Archon. I might look into that once we actually start developing. But at this current point in time, I'm just going to remove it just because I've had a little bit of friction using it up until this point, which is probably me setting it up wrong. But I just want to wait until we've got all the docs sorted. I don't think we need the context that much at this stage. And I think Claude is doing all right with that for now. Cool. So let's get back to the Scrum Master. Okay. Cool. All right, it's sorted. Let's get rid of that. We don't need this. All right, so stories. So you can do Command plus Escape, and that launches Claude. No, it doesn't. So I usually try and do Duolingo whilst waiting for these things. It's actually I think if you get into this vibe coding, there's this real issue where sometimes things can take a couple of minutes and then you either, look into the code, or if you don't want to get, distracted from that, it's dangerous to go and scroll social media or do something like that, which kind of scrambles your brain. So I try and do something somewhat productive instead of just rotting my brain doing something else. Este red es muy popular y a menudo hay gente. Very popular and there is. All right, so we've completed the story.md. So if I come back to BMAD and we take a look here, so we've done the story. We validated the story draft and there was no real issues there. So it looks like we're ready to go ahead to the dev, the sequential task execute. Now, I just want to read over the story myself because I haven't fully read it yet. So this is really just the setup. So here's the task. So initialize, yep, configure. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so this looks pretty good. It looks like we'll be setting everything up, And if we go through it step by step, it means that we can call the right MCPs and do that extra check as it goes. But it looks good. So let's see what the dev says. So if I open up the chat and let's take a look at the agents, and it looks like the dev. So let's see what the dev says. So mid-dev QA, there's a QA agent here as well. Okay, cool. So it's James. He's loaded the project config. So develop story, implement a story by reading requirements and executing tasks sequentially. Nice. Review, run QA, fixes tasks, runs tasks. All right, so let's push to Git before we start, just in case, because it looks like we've hit this. This is planning or initial planning done. Now we're jumping into the actual dev. Cool. So we're just gonna make a commit before that happens. Cool, that's done. All right, so let's go ahead with developing the story. Great, so once the story path, now I think you can actually just drag it in, potentially. No, you can't. Okay, I saw someone doing that and I was like, so let's just do 1.1. In the meantime, I want to take a quick look at the docs here. So we've got introduction, great, untitled, React, cool. Okay, so I think we've already done step one, but we'll get it to just double check that. Cool, so it's updating to the latest version, amazing. So we can see the changes. Now we've got the TypeScript config file, wherever that is. Now where is tsconfig? Here's lint config. It must be in the somewhere. BMAD call we don't need. Get rid of that for now. Cool, so it's going to start the dev server. It's using localhost 3002. So if we go to localhost 3002, now we don't need this path. It's killed the port. Now we might actually have it already, yeah, localhost 3000. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna do this. I'm going to preview it in an incognito window, and the reason for that is just because I don't want any cookies or any problems with the regular browser because we're making changes so often. Just refreshing it in an incognito window means you avoid any issues or bugs that happen with cookies and caching and all that kind of stuff. Now with this, so with Untitled UI, I just want to make sure when we get this implementation done, so with the dark mode, now as well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the server. I like running it out of the Claude terminal. Let's go fetch that content. So it's localhost 3002. I know. Cool. Okay, so there is our Next.js app. I'm going to close the terminal for now. Okay, so we've got the TypeScript. Cool. And the next step is installing and configuring Supabase. So in the meantime, I'm actually doing that right here. I'm going to call it Demo Internal CRM in Sydney, and I'm going to create a project. We need a password. For now, I'm just going to I'll change this password later. So for now, I'm just going to use, if it allows it now. Cool. Okay, so we have created our Supabase account here. Okay, cool. So we got app, global CSS, untitled UI, light mode, primary colors, gray colors, arrow colors, warning colors. Cool. Now, if we come back across to Untitled UI and we just take a look at, light mode, dark mode. So let's actually, we're going to run. So that did not actually make the change to app globals.css. So if we open this file, cool, you can see that there. We're going to quickly read this page. Cool, so let's see what this does. So in the app, we've just got the styles. Great, so we've got global CSS, theme.css, typography CSS. Okay, so it looks like it's just created this global CSS, which is importing layout. Yeah, cool. So it hasn't actually added the import here yet, so it looks like that's what's about to happen. So it's importing the styles now from the theme and the typography from the typography. Now, we have two duplicate globals.css files. So I'm assuming what should happen is we actually delete this and we replace it with this. Great. So as you can see, like that's already an example where if you hadn't picked that up, you've then got two duplicate files. Going forward, that's going to confuse the AI model because it sees two duplicate files. It doesn't know why there's two duplicate files. And as you can see, like this just compounds. So you need to still actually follow what's happening to be able to navigate and make sure that it doesn't hallucinate in these areas. Cool, so it's going to remove the duplicate. All right, so if I come back to this page, we will, why is that? Layout.tsx trying to import from, yeah, cool, great. Okay. Cool. Let's take a look at layouts. Import globals. Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's cool. All right. So it looks like we've got Untitled UI set up in the app, which is awesome. Now we will probably Supabase client libraries. Yes. Okay. So these are all the components, and as we go, we're going to add these into the app. So wherever possible, another tip is using MCP servers wherever possible to get data. So Supabase is MCP, Context 7 MCP, use Brave for web searching. That's going to make sure that we're providing like more accurate context prior to the AI agent making decisions. So wherever possible, if you need any extra information about any third-party service, try and use the MCP first. We don't need to worry about running Supabase locally just yet, but let's open this Supabase folder, server-side rendering. So getting started, let's look at this Next.js. So where is Supabase? The getting started guide is always a great spot to start. So let's see what it says. So create a super, yep, cool, create a Next.js. Cool, it's running the Brave web search. It's reading the docs. Now I'm going extra careful with the setup because the setup's going to affect the entire app the whole way through. So I want to make sure that the setup's done correctly and best practice. Cool, so we've got in the library, we've got in Supabase, we've got client. Cool, and so we're going to need to create the environmental variables in a moment, and then the server, client and server, cool. Cool, so this will show us how to set up the authentication as well. So we've got middleware. Now, why are there two? Okay, so the types generation, I am going to want to set that up. So, okay, so it hasn't. Okay, so I don't want to. Let's check the BMAD. So we got mid-dev QA. Check optional QA trace, address coverage. Okay, so just reviewing this again. So I want to, let's see what James has to say. So I'm not sure why we have two middleware files. So I'm just trying to verify why that's happened. And then I also, the environmental variables are not set up yet, which I know will have to happen at some point, but that may be, if I look at the story, I'm not sure where that happens. I don't know why. Yeah, like I assume that should just be happening now. That's the next step. Figure. Yeah, okay. Anon key, publishable key. So if we come back to Supabase, we go to project settings and we go to API keys. So we got anon public. I can't see a publishable key. These are the legacy keys. So let's disable legacy and let's go ahead with the new publishable keys. So great, so that's disabled, I think. I'll refresh the page and let's see if this works now. That's real weird. Okay, they've already been disabled. So looks like a bit of a possible, cool, okay, so it just took a little bit of time. That's fine, great. Middleware.ts files then. Okay, so let's see. I'm just looking to get a bit more clarification on the two middleware files. And then it looks like we could be good to go. Next.js entry point for all middleware. Okay, cool. So in terms of the story, let's take a look at what's on here. Package JSON. Yeah, cool. Types generate project ID. Okay, so to mark those, it hasn't. Okay, so I'm going to go again just because the dev is a bit confused. I think, to be honest, this is one of the slowest parts just because you want to make sure the setup is correct. When you jump into building features, I actually don't think, if it's documented properly, I think that runs a lot quicker. But auth and setup are two things that are going to take a little bit more time. So, great. Okay, so now it's going through with the type safe APIs, configuration file. So this is the library tier, soup JSON. Not 100% sure what that is. Cool, okay. Components. Interesting. Okay, so now it's going on with the environmental variables. So we're using, cool, so now it's got the progress, publishable key. Yeah, cool. Secret key, great. Database config, email service, resend API key, perfect. Push notifications, that'll be for later. The cell URL, cool. Dev settings, yeah, cool. That looks great. Cool, so as you can see, it's going through these steps here. Now it's creating the env local file. So just to explain what these are, so basically what will happen is when you deploy this, we're going to deploy it on Vercel, you'll define some environmental variables. These are variables like API keys, things that should not be exposed in your code. So what happens when you build locally, you just put those in your env local file, which we can see here. And the env example is so that if you give this to somebody else, they can see what the env file should look like, and then they can basically just replace the example values with real keys, because you shouldn't be sharing API keys or exposing them. Cool. Cool. So yeah, these folders, you really want to understand what they're doing. So that's why I'm like reading everything that's being created so that I can understand what are these files, what are these files, what's this file, what are they actually doing. Preview. So we've done that. Okay, cool. What is this? Yeah, that looks okay. Just some basic settings. Cool. So let's just update. Let's get it to update what's been completed so we can stay on track here before continuing. Yeah, so then we'll have the Git repo. Then there's other dependencies. Yeah, cool. Great. So the Git repo, I think we've made that already. I think it's going to be this one. Yeah, it is. So it's already in. So I think it'll find out that we've already got Git connected. So let's see if it's updated. Hasn't actually marked them as complete. So really what I should have done is said every time you complete one, make sure you mark it as complete before proceeding to the next one. Cool. Let's see if that clears up the instructions. Cool. I have a feeling it's missed a couple of these. So let me just find my stories again in the docs. Okay. It's marked a lot of this is done. Adding next PWA. Gonna say, so it goes add following unified structure. That does. Okay, yeah, app auth, app dashboard. We create placeholder files for the main directories. API, TRPC, types. Cool. So the types are just going to be the database types. So we got types, then we got types app. So if we come down to types, cool. Yep, and the seed data type, great. Hooks, utility functions. Cool, so I got hooks and utilities in here. Cool, that looks good. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this set up. Then we're going to run the QA agent of the entire thing, just to QA this entire setup. So cookies. These are just temporary because when we actually start building, these will populate properly. Edge functions, migrations, amazing. So let's take a look. Run the checks, and then let's take a look at that story. Okay, so I'm going to open the terminal again, and if we just run pm dev in here, should version 3. Now these are all your server logs in here. No errors in this. Cool. Okay, so we've got, looks a little bit crap, but it's there. Cool. Cool. So I'm going to wrap this one up, but that's the first dev story. Now it looks like it's, yeah, that's pretty much everything in there. What will happen after this is I will run the QA agent on this build. I'm going to look into it a little bit more, but we should be marking. Okay, cool. So everything is complete. Yeah, cool. It's gotten the model wrong, but that's fine. That doesn't really matter. What we'll get it to do after this is push to Git. Cool. And let's push those changes to Git. Cool. I'm going to end this video there, but that's that. All right, so the dev agent is done. Now, what I want to do is just go back to the BMAD and do a QA check. So it goes mid QA, dev run all validations. Oh, we don't need the midway QA check, I guess. So let's see what the dev. Okay, so let's clear this then. Let's go back to the dev. Where is it? So if we go core agents dev.md, we run the dev.md again. So let's see, run all validations, request QA review, test architecture review. Cool. So let's take a look. So it's looking for docs architecture source tree.md. Let's check if that exists. Docs architecture. Cool. Okay, so source tree is not there. So that must be in the config file. So if we go back to core config, coding standards, tech stack, coding standards, tech stack. There's no source tree. Okay, so let's quickly po.md review and check the architecture file. Source tree. Cool. So I'm just gonna pass it the 100% sure. Like I've assumed the source tree is a list of everything that's in the folder to easily navigate it to. So if we go to checklists, data, templates, architecture template, user guide. That's what we're looking at on GitHub currently. Cool. So awesome. Okay. Great. Great, so it's in there, cool. Now let's clear again and let's run the dev again. And we want to run all validations. So I wonder, maybe run all validations, detail like you. I think we've already done the run tests. I think we did that at the back end of the last one. So I think we might be ready to mark it for review. If we look at story, we actually already did that, because if we look at story 1.1, we'll see that it's ready for review. So let's actually cancel this, and then let's go QA. So let's clear this again, and let's run the QA agent. Quinn. Test architect. Good. Gate. What the gate? Non-functional requirements. I guess I know that's a validate non-adaptive review map requirements. Right, so quality gate is a checkpoint where it says for story meets quality standards for work and proceed. Cool. It's the visible quality aspects that users expect, but the performance, security, yeah, cool. Risk profile. Risk scores. Okay, cool. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the review. So let's clear this again just to start from scratch. Now let's get the local host up. Yeah, cool. So we can see. So let's go to review, and then let's go 1.1 story. So it's building a tests folder in here. Cool. It's added the code review in there. So it looks like story 1.1 is done. So what will happen? Yeah, we can probably think that's happening already. QA decision, if it'll improve it, verify, commit, gate update needed. Mark story is done. Next one. Where's the QA docs? Yeah, cool. So docs about architecture, QA stories, PRD, epics. Yeah, cool. All right, and then that looks like that is the general process, and we just rinse and repeat for each story. So that looks done. So we've just gone through the entire BMAD method for the setup of this project. So we've set this entire thing up according to the BMAD method. We've got a really solid structure. I really like how this thing looks. And so now it's just about rinsing and repeating for every other story. So I'm going to push it to Git, and then I'm just going to keep moving through some more of the stories and see what happens. Crazy. Okay, so that's that. Now I'm going to push through with some of the next stories and just keep moving forward. I'm probably not going to film all of them. I'll probably just film key moments because otherwise you're going to have literally, days worth of content. But yeah, that's the entire BMAD setup from start to finish for an app. So we scope the entire app out. We initialize the project. Now it's about just working through more of the stories that are in the epics. And I'm going to see how we go with some of the other stories and whether or not we start to hit some issues a little bit later down the line. All right, I'm not filming all of this process. So I've been doing a little bit. I've gone ahead and done story 1.1, story 1.2, and I've just started story 1.3, which is setting up authentication. I thought I would film this because we're starting to connect Untitled UI into the app. Now, I've just started it. This is the first Untitled UI that I'm installing, component that I'm installing. So I've come across the Untitled UI. I've picked this login page, and I've just copied this CLI command, basically dropped it in and said, this is the login component. As you can see here, this is the story 1.3. These are the steps. So we've just started and created the app auth route. So if I come across to the app folder, the auth folder, we can see that we've got these routes, logical routes. So the thing is, it's done. It's created the layout page. We're up to adding the login page. So I'm clicking and I'm installing it right now. And I'm interested to see what this will look like. So what I'm going to do is check if the local host is. So cool. So we've got localhost 3000. Let's close that again. Cool. Needs interactive input. Okay, so we have let's find the components folder. So in components we have choose layout. Okay, so let's run the command ourselves. So if we go back to there's Next.js, if we to Untitled UI, which is here, and we copy the CLI command, we come to the terminal and we paste it in here. It's going to ask us some. So where would you like to add the components? Yep, the components folder. Select which base components. So I assume we use space to select. We're selecting all of them. Yeah, so we want all of these base components. Submit. Cool. So just added in here. We've got the shared assets, and then we got, okay, so foundations, logos, payment icon, base, buttons. Cool. So it's added those features in there. Then in the shared assets, we have the login split mode quote.tsx. What I'll do is I'll come back to the chat. I have cool. So that's in there. Let's see what it does if it can just put that on the login page. Great. I just wanted to quickly do base MCP to make sure that we're using the most up-to-date best practice way of getting authentication to work. And then hopefully we will have a login page in a moment. So if we look at the story again, all right, so auth login page, let's see what this looks like. So auth/login, we should get to that login page, but let's check. So it looks like we're going to be setting up auth, the auth actions and stuff a little bit later. So for now, let's just get the UI set up, and then we'll implement the other stuff later. So page, we got page.tsx. Okay. So I'm going to go back. So what I might actually do is I'm going to install all of the pages for login. So we got login, then we need sign up. So I'm going to come back to here. I'm going to find the sign up. So we did login split mockup quote for the login. If I come back to the pages and we come to sign up pages, let's find a similar one here. Sign up split mocking quote. Awesome. I'm going to copy the CLI command. I'm going to open the terminal again. And paste this in here. I'm going to put that in a components folder as well. That's added selected. Also, so if we come back to components, we look at shared assets. We've now got login and sign up. What else do we have to do? So if I pull this down a little bit, we've got sign up, we've got forgot password and reset password. So if I come back, see if we can find, so we've got sign up, verification pages, we'll need that in a sec, forgot password. We just want something dead simple. Let's install all of these. So we'll have the forgot password page, step 1. Then we'll have step 2, which is check email. So add it to the components file folder. We want all of the icons, yes. Cool. Let's add step 2, components folder, cool. And now let's grab step 3, components folder, cool. Now then we get step 3 success. It's probably all we need for now. I wonder if they all went in the same folder. Yeah, they did. Step 1, step 2, step 3. That's cool. It's great. All right, so let's forgot password. Then we need the reset password, which might be, so reset password's probably very similar. So you got forgot password, forgot password, reset password, they're in the same thing. Verify email, cool. So again, with the verify email, let's install these pages. Add to components folder, amazing. Step 2, love this UI. Yep, and then step 3, it's great, cool. All right, awesome. So what I'm gonna do is I've cleared we have all of the UI now. So I'm going to, let's clear this again, I don't know why, cool. So we're gonna use the dev agent again. I love how this works as well. It's figuring, like this is context. What it's doing here is it's loading context about your app structure, which is so well built. So let's go develop story. Please proceed. Login, reset password, and verify email shared. Cool. All right, let's see if it can implement all of these processes properly. Cool, so it's realized there's a page, it's Reddit. Okay, what's in this login page? What is it when we go on the register page? Yeah. Okay, so it's done the Okay, before proceeding, I want it to actually work. So I'm just gonna say, if I go to sign up. So let's see if we can get this working. Cool, so it's looking at the Supabase middleware. Alright, let's see. Let's see if this works now. Ooh, okay. Okay, so the sign in with Google is not there yet. Now we don't really want, like, it looks good in the UI, but we don't want the login sign up for Google for now, just to keep things simple. Simple username, password. Okay, so let's just remove that. So it's removing a bunch of that. Probably needs to continue to get some of the, okay, great. So if I come back to 1.3, all right, let's continue. So we've got story 1.3, story 1.3, underneath one of these. Now, before we start with that as well, I'm just going to come across. Now, we're using local Supabase, which is not this one. This is the hosted version. So if we want to open local Supabase, we'll come back to here. I believe it's this one. Cool. Now, if we go to authentication, we should. So if we come across to authentication here, we have sign-in providers. Let's allow new users to sign up, confirm email. Cool, email's already enabled. So let's proceed with creating the authentication steps. So with the Supabase MCP, what you want to make sure is that the projects that it's referring to are actually correct, but we're using local. So let's go. Okay, so it's just checking. So so to get your remote Supabase URL, grab this project ID, this one here. It's a bit of a weird way of specifying what I'm looking for, but yeah, cool. Okay, it's gonna do its thing. Cool. Okay, so for Supabase MCP, we actually need to give it a different key in this configuration, which is different from what we have in. So we'll have to update the key. So if I come back, so to get your key, if you come across to access token, I'm just going to call this token up. Internal CRM. Yeah, I'll have it expire in 30 days. Cool. Now let's grab that token. So what I'm going to do, so to update it, I'm pulling them from Claude Code Desktop. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to come across to Claude Desktop. I'm going to open settings. I'm going to come to developer, and I'm going to edit the config and basically edit the Supabase API key. Now I'm going to pause while I do that, just so that the API keys aren't exposed. Cool, so that's done. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quit Claude and reopen it, because sometimes that just helps it validate. And then what I'm going to do is, okay, browser MCP, that's fine, as long as the rest of them are set up. Cool, Supabase running. You can see the access token there, that's all right anyway. So this access token will expire, that's fine, but that's my access token, that's what it looks like. If you want to know how to configure the MCPs, it's literally just JSON. ChatGPT will probably help you do that. It's actually in all the docs anyway, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly go MCP. So we've got a number that have failed here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to open a terminal, and I'm going to go Claude MCP. So we want to remove, so we need to remove, how can I remove all of them? I'll just go Claude MCP, remove Supabase. So to remove that, then I'll go Claude MCP, add from Claude Desktop. You'll see it'll give us the options, and then I'm going to go ahead. We don't need that. Supabase we will need. So it should have recreated that folder there. Now I'm actually going to terminate Claude so we have the new Supabase, the MCP actually set up properly. Gonna run the dev agent again, and we'll keep moving forward with the Superbase setup. Now it looks like Auth is set up properly. We will need to set up 2FA emails. Now I'll do this as we speak. So if you go, I recommend using Resend for this. So if you come into Resend, you sign in, I'm in APG software. What you will want to do is, it's dead simple to set it up in here. So you'll have a number of API keys. I'm just going to call this one, what did I call the project? Demo internal CRM. Now again, I'm not going to show you this key, but what I am going to do is I'm going to come across to creating a custom server. Let's just call this one info. Cool. Now the username, I can't remember the way to set this up. I've set it up previously. I believe the username, the password is the API key. Great. Now I'm also going to set this key up in the env.local file. So we can't actually see it there. Recent API key, I'm actually just going to throw it in here for now. I'll change all the API keys over just so that it's in one spot. I don't need to create another one. Now, cool. So we're going to go develop story. I'm going to go at 1.3. Cool. These are the following. So host is this. So if I come back, the username, the host, username resend. Cool. Port 465. Awesome. Okay, so that looks good. That way we should be able to send emails. Amazing. And now it's doing its thing. So what it's going to do is it's going to edit our middleware files. So now it's probably with Superbase as well. So if we come to the Superbase folder and we've got, here we've got it's going to make an edit. So auth schema. Okay, cool. Looks good. Looks like it's creating a table to check. All right, so that's created a migration to set up auth, and we should be able to see that in the migrations folder. Yep, upgrade. Now the config.tml is just for our local Superbase. I'm not sure what this is. Password requirements. Yep, cool. So auth.ts, where is that? I think it'll be somewhere in here. Let's just Superbase auth. Yeah, cool. So it's created an auth. So we've got middleware server, middleware client, auth admin. Cool. So if we come back to the auth, middleware TS file already exists in the root, so it's reading that. I think we need a page for that. Now let's take a look at Untitled UI. Take a look. So we have verification pages. Now let's look for groups. Now we might need to just install all of these, to be honest. Yeah, can we get up? So these are all. So it looks like, these are all React. Cool. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's fine. Alright, setting up resend. So come back to Superbase and then go to the authentication. Shit. Okay. It's a couple issues with the auth for now, but let's let it do its thing, and let's let it build the tests and see how that goes. So if we come to utilities, auth errors in the hooks. Cool, now it's running some tests. Is it making this in the test folder? It is. Tests, cool. Integration, auth tests, yeah, cool. Great, so next up is the QA agent to actually test this, because I think we can see that it is not working. Cool, let's run QA. So following BMAD again, so we've got this. I am going to run QA. I guess we can run all validations. Let's do that. Let's run the dev again and run all the validations first, and then we'll run the QA. So here, now this should be updated. If we go to story 1.3, yeah, cool. Run tests, review QA. I'm actually gonna reset this again and just run the QA, and let's see if we can get this set up and sorted. Cool, so we're going to review story, I think, is probably the best way to do it. I like that the instructions are set up really, really well. It's going through everything that we kind of changed, because there's the change log that's in the story file, so it looks like it's going through most of that. Yeah, it's going through everything we set up and giving it kind of like another review. Yeah, and it's really reading through all of it, which is awesome. Cool, it's creating the gate decision file. Let's take a look at what it's got. Wow, that's the only thing. So I'm going to go back to the dev agent now. I'm going to fix those linting issues. Then I'm going to ask it to basically fix this redirecting issues. Cool. Now I want it to try and run the actual test for story 1.3. Going to use the core agent again. I'm just going to pause this whilst it runs again. right, so I've got this working. It's taken me a little bit of playing around to figure this out, and I've had to go back and forth, basically update the story.md file every time like we make a change. You go back and forth between the dev agent and the QA agent. But what's awesome is that we've now got the 2FA working and these nice login and sign up screens set up and working. So in the Superbase environment, you can see I've been doing a bunch of testing. There's a bunch of users in here. But the awesome thing is that like it looks great. I love the look of it. It's exactly what I'm going for, to be honest. So killer, absolutely love it. The sign up is working. There's no dashboard page yet, so it basically just sends a 2FA email to our local environment, and that's it in bucket. But it's awesome that I managed to like. So what was happening was there was just this one. And typically it's like this with the weird formatting before. There was this little bit of code on the authentication widget that was just throwing the entire formatting off. Changed a couple of lines. I went back and forth so many times, like checking the Untitled UI setup, making sure that we had everything was correct there, and I felt like I was kind of going around in circles. And I think the main thing to be aware of in those situations is like to make sure that you're reading what the AI agent's updating. You're updating the story dev notes with what's happening, so that every time, like if it goes around in circles and it doesn't figure it out, you want to make sure you're either undoing those changes, but more so you're just documenting what happened, so that when you clear the chat, you start again, it knows what it's done, so it doesn't hallucinate and then start creating duplicate things. Because when you go around in circles like that, that's when spaghetti code starts to come out. The AI starts going crazy, adding all these different things to try to solve problems, and then forgetting it's done it in the new conversations. So that's the main thing to be aware of there. I'm adding the notes here. I'm going to run another QA check on this. So to be honest, I've QA'd it like 4 times now, so I'll probably just move on to the story 1.4, which might be the dashboard. I'm not sure what that actually is. But looking forward, like this looks awesome. So I'm looking forward to kind of getting this auth process set up and seeing how we go with it. I love the UI already. So we'll see what happens. All right, this is an update. So we've come in, we've got authentication working. We have a basic dashboard working that honestly looks quite dry. And then we've just set up this settings tab here. Now it's not even working, but we are pulling the UI from Untitled UI. And what I'm going to do now is set up this team page. And what I wanted to show you was that if you go to Untitled UI, I think it's this one, and you come to the React settings page. So what happens is there's all these settings pages, but if you come to the base components, you scroll down to the bottom. Now, like dashboards, they've categorized it as dashboard settings pages and informational pages. Now, I'm using like the 0.1 ones because I think they look slightly more towards what I'm looking for. But if you go to the settings pages, you'll see it's got like all of these, which are very, very common settings pages. And then if you scroll down, you'll see them all. So like this is like these look like my profile pages. Again, my profile page. Some more, this company profile, looks like a my profile. This looks like a general, settings page. So then we've got team. So I'm building the team management one. So there's a bunch of team management ones here. We've got, we can see here we've got a bunch of team users. Now this is if you want to break it down into user roles. This one here looks like if you're going for like a team-based approach. I've just stuck with the simple one, but like look, there's billing pages, all these different pages, heaps of different pages. So like this is where now I'm going to show you how to install it. So for the team members, now I see this one. I'm actually not against this. This probably makes more sense, but it's more complex. But it's probably simpler. So I'm actually going to use this one. So copy CLI command. Now come back over. So I've worked through story 1 to 1.5. With the authentication, I made I'd recommend just turning confirm email off in your Superbase local settings. Like keep everything dead simple. So just email password, no email confirmation. Like keep it as simple as possible for the start, because authentication is like one of the biggest roadblocks that you're going to have. And I would just keep it dead simple at the start. You can always make it more complicated later. But I'm going to come here. I'm going to copy that command that I had. I'm going to push it in here, and it's going to install. Cool. So it goes, where would you like to add it? I'm just going to add it into the app folder for now. So you'll see that it'll pop up in here in a moment, and then the components will go in the components folder. Now we want to add all of the components. We've probably got most of them already, and then it will run the installation, and you'll see it pop up here in a moment. Cool. Now we've got the files. So don't overwrite duplicate files, and Cool, we can see it here, settings 09. Cool. And so what I'll do now is that on my actual local branch, I'll go, this team tab is currently empty. Now, personal info, I want this page to be the My Profile page. So I'm going to, it's updated all the stories. So I'm going to remove this now and I'm going to create a new brand, a new conversation. Now, what we actually need to do is we probably need to revise. Let me just look at the stories, because if we come back to the docs, which are here, we look at the stories and we look at story 1.5. Let's just open the preview and remove this as well. Now, if we look at story 1.5, it goes create settings, app structure. So settings, company page, settings, user page. Cool. So we haven't done that yet. So what I'm going to do in the dev is I'm going to go review story. So, or let's go 2. We're going to go at 1.5. And then we haven't actually got, so this is just, it's just working with company settings. So let's actually pull the Scrum Master up first. The Scrum Master built the story, because we've got my details, we've got profile, but then we've got team. Now, if we go back to Untitled UI, we pull back, let's see what the company settings, because they had like here, company profile was in profile. Yeah, cool. So they have my details and then profile. Cool. So profile will be company profile. So we're going to correct the course here, and we're basically just going to get it to correct. We're going to get the tab structure to align with what is in the, because these really are most of what we need. Now let's take a look at what is the email tab. So if we come down, this is settings. Yeah, okay. Email looks like just email notifications, which I think we'd probably put in the notifications tab. So we'll probably change this a little bit. We'll probably push my details and password to the front, and we'll push the company stuff. So like API integrations would all be further down. Billing, we got settings. Cool. Now, I'm not going to run through this too quickly. I will go through this. Will take a little bit of time. But what I wanted to show you mainly was how to basically get the components. So what I'll do then is, once I have it set up, I'll go to the agent. I'll be like, please use the settings page 09, which is in the components folder. Sorry, it's in the app folder. So if we go here, I'll go, please use settings 09. I'll move it out of that folder and into the actual dashboard settings folder, but I'll get the agent to do it. And then that's how we can pull like entire pages from Untitled UI and basically put them in here. And then we'll tweak them with the components later down the line. Let's go. Now we're going to use YOLO mode for it to update here, because we haven't even set it up yet. Anyway, I'm going to go set this up and then record a video when I've done it and restructured everything. But then I should have the dashboard page set up, and then using the Untitled UI components to build things like the dashboard and the projects and make them look really nice, basically. So in this video, what I've done is I've gotten through 1 and 1.5. So I'm just going to hide the beats. So if we look, I've pulled the dashboard in. Now this exactly matches a dashboard from Untitled UI, but it looks awesome. If you go to the settings page, I have the team members section set up and working, which is great. So now I'm just working through the story. I got to story 1.6, which is the PWA and the mobile, but I realized that that is just not critical. I want to get the whole thing working on desktop first, even though that we can see if we make it mobile, like Untitled UI comes nice and mobile responsive. So this is already looking good on smaller screens anyway. But what I've done is I've just used the project manager here, the agent, to basically go through, process like a change request. So it's done all this, recommended path. And so basically what it's going to do is it's going to adjust all my stories and my docs. It's gone through and like assess the change, where that's going to influence things. Now it doesn't influence anything at this point because I haven't started the PWAs, but I went through the start and I was like, look, this just isn't a priority. I want to get the functionality working first. Then we can wrap the whole mobile PWA stuff into it later. So with this, it's awesome how you can use the different agents. They go through your code base, assess it. It's going to basically build like a change proposal. We'll modify the settings again and keep going. And then Untitled UI is just making the user interface side of things a hell of a lot easier, so that I can focus on actually getting, and it even helps you just understand, what to add into the fields and stuff like that. So yeah, Untitled UI is looking like a real lifesaver here. And then once I can get this stable and working, hopefully we can move into like number 2 and number 3. And I think the pages, like clients pages, they're basic CRUD pages, and it should take an hour or two to kind of implement, especially some of the basic pages. Some of the more complex pages will be a little bit more difficult, but yeah, it's really not looking too bad. So hopefully things should speed up significantly now that we've got some of the admin stuff out of the way. The other thing is that in the tests, these end-to-end tests using Playwright to like simulate the browser are so useful, because you can it basically just runs the test it mimics a browser, opens a browser, runs the test in your browser, goes through all of the steps, and then it can view all the server logs and everything. It can debug it itself. So I've been using that to like debug authentication, which was honestly what took the longest amount of time. So I'd recommend to keep authentication dead simple at the start. No 2FA, no nothing. You can always come back to it later, but that's one of the biggest roadblocks, and you don't want to waste too much time there at the start. Just get the whole thing working, and then kind of just pumping through the pages now. Cool. Yeah, cool. And then yeah, that's kind of the progress update. So I should be coming through. I'll make a longer video when I complete the Epic one of everything that got completed and all the changes and stuff like that. But I'm coming through. It's going to adjust the epics a little bit here now. So cool. Okay, so we're going to get it to, now I'm pretty sure I actually created a docs folder, and this is something that's not yet in change proposals. So that's something that actually isn't built into the BMAD system, is like the whole change proposals folder, or if it is, it just didn't work when I was doing it. So I've created one called change proposals. This, like the way that gates work in the QA, which is awesome. Like this is obviously built in. I'm sure they're probably going to add that in at some point anyway, or you could just add it yourself. But I've just been doing it manually. But yeah, I'll put the change request in here. We're going to act on the change to basically move the priority of the PWA down into a much later stage. Keep pushing forward with Epic 1, and then we should have something nice and set up. And yeah, I'm loving the way the UI looks. It's so clear. So I'm looking forward to like getting all of the basics set up, and then we can actually start to punch through some of the functionality of some of the crucial tabs that will be in here. Okay, so I just finished story 1. So if we come down to stories, we'll see story up to 1.12. I actually just started 2.1a, but I'm just going to show you what happened in 1. So we got the dashboard set up. So if I come back to the dashboard, now this is obviously the dashboard. The actual setup of the stats happens at the very end once you've got all of your data types and everything set up. So it's really just a placeholder of this page. I'm not really going to come back to this until the end. But what I got set up was the company settings. So I set up a complete E2E test. And what an E2E test is, if we come down to the tests, they're basically done with Playwright. So you'll see here, essentially what it does is it actually replicates a test in your browser, which is super powerful, because especially when you're finishing modules and you're getting entire parts of the application set up, you can use it to basically just every time you make a change, you can run that test again. It runs like a 30-second test in a browser or whatever, just verifies you haven't broken anything. But you'll see here, we've got company details. I can come in here and add company information. I can save it. If I refresh the page, see that that's saved. We can invite team members. So you'll see here, I've got the team members. There's a basic activity log. So this is just logging activity. So if I invite a team member, so if I come in here and I go, Billy Brown, gmail.com. And the cool thing about this is that it's pretty much all mobile responsive as well. So we'll see we've got the sales manager in here. I come to the activity log. Okay, so that was working before. I've got to go back and fix exactly why that's not working. Again, even like padding, like I'd like to have that padded a little bit more, but I'm not getting stuck in the weeds at this point. I'm just getting the basics set up. So I've got that set up, and then I've got the profile page set up. So really just the absolute basics for this app to work. So you can add a profile image, you can add a banner, you can modify your basic details. Same thing, password notifications activity. I just got the absolute basics set up. And so I've just moved on to building out the client. Like these pages are easy. They're really just CRUD pages. They're things that can happen pretty quickly. The main complexity is really in that authentication, user roles, things like that. I'm going to push ahead and start pumping some of these pages out, because I want to get most of the user interface set up and ready, because that's the vision of this project sorted. And then what I'll probably do is get somebody to come in and just help tie the loose ends together. I know the code quality is decent. It's not perfect. As you can see, the user interface is amazing. So then it makes a lot of sense to get somebody who's a Next.js and Supabase expert through and through to come in and tie the loose ends on the end of this platform to just make sure it operates as smoothly and as cleanly as possible. But as you can see, it's looking good. It's working pretty clean. And I'm looking forward to seeing what I can get done in Story 2. So if we come to Epic 2 up here, we'll see that Epic 2 is the lean CRM. So it's this left side nav. So it's clients, leads, and projects, long story short, and payroll. So it'll be those tabs is the lean CRM. Then we're going to move to the workspace side of the application, which will be the ops stuff. So communication and stuff like that. And that'll be like the core template of this app there and then. And that's honestly, that's 75, 80% of what this app is going to involve wrapped up there. So yeah, that's how it's been going. Honestly, in terms of time, I mean, I think when I last was recording videos, it's taken me, I actually had some client work on a podcast pop up on the weekend. So in terms of hours, it's probably been, I think stage 1 or Epic 1, probably took between 40 to 60 hours, I would say, in total, including all of the learning, mucking around and everything that I did. I think Epic 2 is going to be a hell of a lot shorter than that. I'd say probably 10 to 20. Same with Story 3. And then Story 4 will be cleaning everything up. That will take a little bit of time as well. But as you can see here, we're building look how amazing this application looks. It's going to have a hell of a lot of functionality. That is great. And this is the first one. If we template this approach and start flipping them out, we can do it a hell of a lot quicker. So yeah, that's just an update on how everything's tracking and what's been happening. And I'm just slowly chugging away in the BMAD method here. There's been a couple of adjustments. I'm using the exact same framework from GitHub there. Whenever there's something that's slightly different that I recognize, I go in, I run the product owner or the PM, do like what it calls it change course. So if I go PM, you just say, let's say you notice, oh, actually I want this feature here, or this shouldn't be there, or whatever the case is. You can run this change course workflow, and then it basically adjusts all of your documentation to that new changed course. So yeah, it's going really, really well, chugging through. There are some periods of frustration getting things to work, and you have to make sure you're pushing to Git regularly to make sure you can roll back if you go down a rabbit hole. The other thing as well is clearing this chat. And trying not to run out of context. You want to try and do 1 or 2 prompts where possible, break things down in a nice bite-sized chunk, clear the chat, start again, keep the context window nice and small. Yeah, hope you guys if you're following along up until this point, I hope you're seeing some success in your projects and this whole thing is starting to make a lot of sense. All right, you guys can probably see the time. So I think since the last video, it's probably been a couple of days. I've honestly been pretty busy with client work. I actually filmed that podcast with Liam, filming another one today. So I've had a number of other things that I've been working on. But so you'll see this is the workspace tab. I literally just started this, which is Epic 3. But what I'm going to show you through is Epic 2 is there. So if I come back to Claude, that's my presentation for tonight. So if we come back in here, we'll see here, so Epic 2, I did a little bit of refactoring. Let me just close all these. All right, that's good. Okay, so if we look at Epic 2, so we'll see, I did some basically management. So we've got organizations, clients, leads, and projects. These are like the absolute core functions of this app. And really the main purpose of these is honestly just to allow the creation of these records so that I can then go and build the workspaces tab out. Because in terms of implementation, the way that these teams work is, and I'm building this for my team first, is let's say I've got 10 team members. This is for me and maybe 1 or 2 project managers to be managing the project management side of things, but I call it the ops or the operations side of things, which is what will be in the workspace, is what the team will be utilizing most. Like in terms of functionality and time spent in this platform, 80% of it will be in that workspace tab. Think of it like a Monday.com, Trello, Slack, Asana. The actual communication, task management, time sheeting, those kind of things are the main functions of this platform in terms of usage. So my priority launch-wise is to get that working first as soon as possible, because I can then get team members on board to start using it. They're testing it. And whenever you're building these MVPs in your head, you should always be thinking, what's the quickest way that I can get this to market? It should always be the thing that you're thinking about. You don't want to waste time building things that aren't necessary. So when we come to like this clients page, we've got basic view client pages, but like some of these buttons, for example, don't work yet, but they're not critical. Like emailing a client directly out of an app or anything like that, not a critical function. I'm not worrying about it now. I'm literally just creating clients, being able to create leads, drag them through this Kanban board, and then be able to create projects, because projects are what workspace, like a workspace is linked to a project. So in the case of a software development company, which is what we run, we get a client, we do a bunch of calls, discovery calls, scoping, whatever, they're in that lead phase. And then if they want to go ahead with a project, we create a project for them, and then we start doing work. So then we go to a workspace and start assigning tasks and getting cracking on a project. So what I've done is like Epic 1 here. So I've just moved on to Epic 2, Epic 3, which is the actual workspace development. But Epic 2, you'll see here is lean core CRM. So it's literally just organizations and clients, CMS, which we'd already built. The CMS, or the content management system for the client, and then the project's foundation. That's all it was. Because what I've done is I've shifted everything else, which is like payroll, and more fun, like invoicing, expenses, all that kind of stuff. I'd rather get this working for the team as a communication spot first, then worry about all the other extra bells and whistles. I can send invoices out of our old system. It's not critical to get that into this system before the workspace stuff. So I've gotten the core features in there first. Then I'm going to try and get the workspace working, which I'm super excited to do. Then I'll move on to finishing the actual CRM side of the app. And then there's like stability polishing, cleaning it up, which honestly, I'm probably going to get one of the team members that's better in Next.js and React than I am to help out with. So I'll get this 90% of the way. And even in terms of giving this to a developer, you can see that like this is starting to come together, and it's a lot easier to visualize and understand what we're building here when pages start getting built out and functions start getting built out. Then I can just go to a developer and be like, hey, look, like these things aren't working. Do you think you could help me fix them? But then they understand the flow of things a lot better than me giving them this document and telling them to go from there. Even though the PRD is good, there's still a lot of visualization and communication required to get to something that looks like this. So I like building this out, getting this nice and clear, and then giving it to a dev. So what we've done is we've got Epic 2 completed, this lean CRM core. And now we're moving on to Epic 3, which is the workspace stuff. So here we've got works. So I think I've just done this one, workspace home dashboard. It needs work. It's formatting a bit weird. Then I'm going to do individual project workspace, task management systems, CMS, which is already there, time sheeting. And then there's the chat. That must be, real-time messaging. I'm super keen to get this workspace page out, because this is honestly this is really the bread and butter. 80% of the stuff goes down in here. The other side is more of just a management standpoint, which is still super important. But this is the side that I'm so excited to get wrapped into one software, because most companies are using Slack, they're using all these different tools. And this data is so useful because it's all the contextual data about a project. If you're getting all of the team member messages and task activities for a project, you can basically use AI behind the scenes to, like, most teams spend 30 minutes per meeting at least a couple of times a week on like stand-up meetings just to understand where other team members are at with things, all this kind of stuff. If all that information's in one spot, then you can use AI to summarize how team members are working on projects, and if there's any issues, it can automatically flag you, and like all these cool things that you can build into it. Going to be so exciting. So yeah, that's the progress update. Nothing really new is changed at this point. It's just working through the BMAD. The way it typically works is it builds out a whole feature. Then there's usually a couple of issues, like formatting issues, things like that. What I've been doing is going to Untitled UI, grabbing the component, installing the component, which you can see that I've done right here, for example, with this page. I install the component, it pops up in this app page right here. So I can delete these because we're no longer using them. And then I basically just like, so let's say, for example, I'm building the chat messaging feature. I go to the chat messaging UI and Untitled UI. I grab it, I install it. Then in the prompt, I go, hey, look, building this, use this UI for inspiration, or sometimes even like directly copy this user interface for the page, blah, blah, blah. That helps it like a lot of times get the user interface side of things correct. And then, yeah, there's usually a little bit of tweaking. And then building these end-to-end tests with Playwright is awesome as well, because you can basically make sure that things don't break. So I've got this one here that goes through it and it basically signs up, creates a user, creates a lead, creates a project, just to make sure that those like CRUD operations are working. And that way I can quickly make sure that nothing breaks essentially. So yeah, that's the progress update. Epic 2 is ticked off. So moving on to Epic 3, which is workspaces, and I'm super keen to show you how this side turns out, because this is, yeah, by far my most, the side of the app that I'm the most excited for sure. So yeah.
All right, an update on where we are at with this. So where we've gotten to is we've got the whole workspace side of the app working now. So you'll see what I've done. I've done a couple of things. So I've worked through story number 3 here. If I come down and show you, it's in the docs, in the stories. So story 3.1 to 3.6, so 3.1, let me just close all of these so you can see. So 3.1 was setting up the basic projects, like the workspace side of the app. So you'll see what we've got is we've got CRM. Okay, might need to restart the, I just closed the terminal, that's why. Cool, okay, so I killed the local server, which is why that's not loading. But as that pops up again, so you'll see we did 3.1, which was the, let me just open the preview, easy to read. So in 3.1, we had home dashboard. 3.2 was individual project workspace, which I'll show you in a moment, it's logged me out. So it's about to send me back to the login page. That's what it's doing. Yeah, so that's what I was going to do. So I've actually got a seed account now. So I just created a demo account. So every time the local Supabase environment resets, it creates this account that already has some clients and fields assigned to it. So you'll see, it just saves me like every single time I reset the local database, I don't need to come back in and reset this up. It's got demo accounts in here. So we've got this set up from Epic number 2. If we come across to the workspace, we've got these 3 demo projects. So that's what we did in 3.1 here. And then 3.2 is the individual project workspace. So if I click into a project, we've got this as a project workspace. And you'll see, so 3.3 is real-time messaging. So, yeah, cool. So real-time messaging in here. So this is really cool. I can go like, hi, and send messages in here. So we've got the channels, and then we've also got the direct messages. Again, using Untitled UI's chat component. Now, some of these these buttons aren't configured. I'm really, at this point, I'm just getting all the basics down, as you can see, because I'm gonna try and get the app as like full and complete as possible, and then come over and start cleaning up the finer points about like little buttons and icons and loading UIs and little bugs with navigation and all that kind of stuff. But we had that. Then I did the task management, the CMS, which was the same CMS system that we used in the clients and the projects, the timesheeting interface, and then that's it. 3.7 is optimizing, but there's a couple of things in here where I'm like, look, like Vercel analytics and stuff, I want to get the rest of the CRM side of the app done. That way, like the entire basic app is there, and I can give it to a Next.js Supabase expert and be like, look, this is exactly how the app would work. And they're basically going to handle like getting it stable and reviewing the code and just fixing the little bugs and issues. But as you can see, we're 90% there. So we've got the tasks, be able to like view tasks, add comments, etc. Basic team page, just see who's in the team. Messages, again, I just showed you that CMS or content management system. So you can see here we've got files. So if I create a file, I'll just go like test document. Now we probably need to clean up this UI a bit. We've got our test document here. We can edit it and be like blah, 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 blah. Save. We can build all these documents and folders. Now timesheets in here. So I'm actually going to remove this timesheets because I want it all to be in this timesheets tab. But here's the timesheet, so we can look at like the monthly view or whatever, and we can basically just quickly see what time we've logged, be able to look in the list view. Cool. I added these time entries, 10 hours, total this week, 18 hours, edit, whatever, be able to adjust those timesheets. And that's pretty much everything, honestly. for the workspace. Like, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than this, at least for what we do, especially not in the initial version of the product. So this is probably everything. So what I'm going to do is go back. There's a couple of little features that just need to be added to the main CRM page, like the payroll that aggregates the timesheets across all of the users, and probably a couple extra pages on the company settings and a couple of things like that. And then that's our proof of concept there. And then I can kind of get someone else on board to clean this whole thing up. But yeah, that's honestly where the progress in terms of working through here. As you start getting more and more through this, I've done a couple of change requests, which I already showed you in a previous video using the project manager and the product owner. But outside of that, it's really just been going through these step by step. It doesn't usually get it on the first shot. There's usually a couple of import errors and a few minor things. And I think with the BMAD framework, even since I installed it, there's a couple of little gaps that I've noticed in the BMAD framework. And I'm sure they're probably updating that constantly. And even now, there's probably a better version of it out there. But all in all, this framework is really good for getting things done, getting things built, and it's all really well documented. So we can see here the change log and all the files that have been added. I haven't done 3.7, but if we go back to like 3.6, for example, we can see here that we've got all these dev notes in here. And so if I wanted to, like, later down the line, this documentation is incredible for being able to push all of this into like some sort of really big large language model and probably understand the code base really, really well. So yeah, that's the progress. You can see here that we're getting much closer to a product that's all here. Now, there's a lot of the stuff on the logic side that still needs to get hooked up. But in terms of building an app entirely by yourself without code and being able to, you can pretty much build the whole thing 80-90% of the way there. You could probably even get to 100 if you're persistent enough. But then, when you go to a specialist or a dev, you've got this entire thing. It's all there. It's pretty much good to go. And it's just like, okay, now we've just got to get it stable, get certain parts of this app ready to go, and we onboard onto it. And, we're good to go. So it's a little progress update as I get to the end of Epic 3 and start to worry about Epic 4, which, let me just check. I can't even remember what that is. It's the financial, it's invoices, expenses, reporting, payroll. Yeah, so that's the next story. And then after that, it'll be PWA and then stability and polish. And there's some cool, I want to do like vector databases and stuff after that, but we'll worry about that later. We'll get all this stable first, and then we'll add that stuff in. Yeah, that's the progress update. If you guys have been following along this entire build, I hope things are starting to look good on your version. Depending on what your app you're building, you might be building something completely different, or you might be trying to build the same system for you. So yeah, keep going. I hope you're finding this useful.
All right, so welcome to, I'm going to call this the final product, but honestly, this is the final pre-adoption product. So this is what I would call an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. It's usable. I'm going to be fully transparent. It still has a couple bugs in it, which we're working on, but I onboarded the team onto it this morning through the CRM platform. We did send some messages, had a bit of a chat in the messages tab, which was cracker, and really good to see. So sending a couple messages, sending files through the chat, adding tasks, being able to kind of comment on these tasks, which looks awesome again. So this is what the end product looks like. Now, being fully transparent, I would estimate, so I've probably spent 2 months working on this in total now. And honestly, I do a million other things. I've been managing multiple other client projects, doing dev and admin stuff in there, as well as dev and admin stuff in here, and managing, trying to get content out for my community, doing 1 million other things. So from a complete total hourly input into this, I would estimate anywhere between 200 to 400 hours in total over 2 months. Honestly, possibly less than that. But let's say 200 to 400 hours to be that could even be over exaggerating it. I'd say it's probably much closer to 200 hours. Now that may sound like a lot, but if you look at the complexity of what we've built here, 200 hours is peanuts. It looks really good. It's quite user friendly, and it's working largely. Now there's still a couple of placeholders and a couple of extra features that I want to get into this app, But general, like adding clients, doing all that kind of stuff, this works. So we've added kind of like test projects and stuff in here. And I've gone through, invited people through the company settings, all that kind of stuff. And that's all working. So the next step is we're actually, over the next week or two, onboarding. We've already done a little bit of an onboarding, but I'm going to be onboarding everybody onto the project. All of my internal team members, or everyone that works at APG Software, going to jump in here and we're going to start managing tasks, handling comms through this platform. So yeah, I'm stoked and I'm gassed with the BMAD method and what's come out here. The code base is quite well organized. I've actually now got a developer helping me build this. So I'm stepping out of the development stuff. I've shown him around and the BMAD framework, documentation, and even creating epics and stories as a PM is game changing, because you can create the epics, you can create the stories, and then you can kind of onboard a dev. And that way the dev has so much more context and awareness, and the AI also has that extra context and awareness to actually understand what's happening and understand where that story fits into the grand scheme of things in the long-term vision for your project. So stoked that we finally got here and we've built I would call this a complex application using AI coding. It's connected with Supabase. It's using a front-end UI framework, and it's honestly cracker. So I'm going to share more updates as we go through. And long-term vision for YouTube and content is, now that I've shown you like the technical side of things and how we've built this, the next steps are going to be, how do we actually use it as a company? How does it save us time? We're going to start building AI automations that are going to tie into this, because we now have all of our data in one spot. When we build AI automations, it's going to be a lot easier to access that data and do all sorts of cool things with it. So I'll be doing a lot of N8N work and showing how that happens behind the scenes, vector databases and stuff like that. And then also the business side of it is, how do we sell something like this to other companies that are drowned in complex SaaS tools and what we call SaaS bloat, or using 5 to 20 SaaS tools to sell to manage their business. Their data's all over the shop. And how can they adopt AI, which is about unifying your data source and providing easy contextual access, which is just data, to an AI brain, which is the non-technical term that I use, on how we can actually build awesome AI automations and AI automations that actually drive ROI for businesses and are not just fluff. So appreciate you watching this entire thing. I'm stoked with where we're at. I'm going to be providing more updates, and good luck in whatever you're building. And I hope this video helped you understand AI coding on a deeper level, how to actually AI code things that are more stable, help you understand exactly what you're doing. And yeah, thank you very much for following along. And let me know if you're following me on YouTube, if you're in my community, post, comment, let me know how things go on your side. I want to hear about it, and good luck. Happy coding.